As we close the 2021 NFL regular season, the majority of the NFL will enter the offseason in a few short days, while the teams that have had successful years will ultimately be competing for what every team strives for when they show up in June for OTAs. A Super Bowl. Teams will be looking at their rosters this offseason and assessing where both their strengths and weaknesses are, and in today's video we are going to be taking a look back at the 2021 NFL Draft for teams that can mark their draft picks as big hits and a year later are absolutely thrilled with the selections they made. Spoiler, Cowboys fans, I will not be talking about Micah Parsons for a few reasons. Everyone knows how good he is, there's several film breakdowns out there about him, and again, everyone knows how great of a player and how generational, and I don't use that word lightly, he truly is, and he is a very obviously a hit for Dallas, and there's really nothing I'm going to be able to say that you either A, already don't think, B, already don't know, or C, haven't heard. So with that spoiler out of the way, let's begin. And we're going to start today's video with Browns defender. Notice I'm using the word defender here, and it is second round pick Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, and from here on out will be referred to as JOK. Now, JOK was one of my favorite players in the 2021 draft, as he is not only fast but decisive, plays the gaps well, and is certainly a piece for the Browns' future. JOK has played 13 games so far, has 74 tackles with 3 TFLs, 4 quarterback hits, and even has 1.5 sacks. You always hear in the draft, and especially on the first night of the draft, about plug-and-play pieces on a team. Example, the Chargers selected Pro Bowl left tackle Rashawn Slater last April, and every draft analyst, and really everyone, this wasn't just exclusive to draft analysts, but the consensus was, alright, the Chargers now have their quarterback and left tackle of the future, and they will just plug him in for the next decade. Boom, blindside problem for the franchise quarterback is now solved. And the Browns have done that with a second round pick in JOK in whichever role they want to use him in. The interesting part about JOK is he probably won't ever fill the stat sheet like you see with other defensive players, where he has either 120 plus tackles like Bobby Wagner this year, for example, or like a center field safety that may get 5 or 6 interceptions or even more in a season, but JOK's presence is always known. And despite the Browns' 2021 struggles, not a lot can be attributed to him because he has been productive as a rookie, and the Browns certainly have a piece for the future. And for players like Jeremiah, Myles Garrett, and Denzel Ward, they are no doubt more than frustrated with how the season went because a lot of it was out of their control. And playing devil's advocate for a second here, if you take away the Browns' worst games of the year defensively in terms of points given up, the Chargers' 47-42 game, and of course the throttling in New England, which was 45-7, Cleveland has given up on average just 18.7 points per game. And if an offense in 2021 can't put up an average of 19 points per game to win aside from 2 games, then there's clear problems on that side of the football. But JOK has been a true bright spot for the Browns, and a year later, despite sliding down the board for what was concerned to be heart problems, JOK is proving the Browns right for betting on him, and he will prove them right for betting on him for the next decade. Now we head to Georgia to discuss Kyle Pitts, and there's a few components about this selection that over the next few years I hope does not happen. Unfortunately, I think it will, and it may have already started in Falcons fan forums and Twitter replies and in places like the Atlanta Falcons Reddit. As we know, the Atlanta had the 4th overall pick, and the first 3 selections were quarterbacks. However, I think over the next few years, we'll see a lot of, oh great, we drafted a tight end when we needed a defensive playmaker like Micah Parsons, and see that everywhere on social media, similar to how we see the Jalen Reagor and Justin Jefferson now with Eagles fans. Having said that, Pitts is a very good tight end and will be for some time, and it's not an exaggeration to say he had a top 3 best rookie season tight end has ever had. He had over over 1,000 yards before the 17th game was played, so I don't want to see anything on social media like, oh, well, Pitts needed a 17th game to squeak out 1,000 yards and to get him 1,003 yards. Wow, what a pick that was by Atlanta, and really try and diminish what he's accomplished in his rookie season, because quite frankly, it's nothing short of spectacular. Kelsey, Gronk, Andrews, whoever, none of those guys accomplished what Kyle Pitts did in his rookie season, and I do think that's something we should be more talking more about, sorry guys. One thing I'm sure people will comment is the touchdowns or lack thereof. Kyle's only touchdown came in a game against the Jets in London, and a team that noticeably does not have a great secondary. So Kyle and of course the offensive coaches in Atlanta will have to do a better job utilizing him as a red zone option in year number 2, and really for the future as well. And I really hope by the time Kyle hangs his cleats up in what is 10 plus years from now, we don't say essentially what we say about Julio Jones now, though they play different positions, and that is, imagine if they used him correctly in the red zone. No disrespect to these guys, but Michael Crabtree and Marvin Jones only have 6 less career touchdowns than Julio, and I mean, as we know, it's not even close as to who the better player was in their prime. And I hope the same thing does not happen for Pitts, because it would be a shame if it did. Really, I don't want him to have like 22 touchdowns in 10 years and think, man, what happened? But 1 year later, Kyle Pitts is providing dividends for the investment Atlanta made in him, and despite all the noise of, oh, well, you can't take a tight end 4th overall, well, a year later that is background noise. Now we head to Miami to discuss a player who will be a problem for a very long time, and a player who will be hunting down Josh Allen, Mac Jones, and Zach Wilson for a decade plus, and it is Jaelan Phillips. Jaelan had quite the draft story, as he had to medically retire, then came back, and a year after the Dolphins drafted him 18th overall, the selection has more than paid off. Now, if you're a subscriber and have been for some time, you may remember I included him in a video of draft disappointments earlier in the year, and he was, once upon a time. The whole Dolphins team was, as they started out a measly 1-7, and in the 8 games since then, Jaelan had a truly different second half of his rookie year versus the first half, as he totaled 7 sacks, 8 tackles for a loss, and 10 quarterback hits, and was a problem, and made opposing offensive linemen know he was there every single game. When I made the initial video, Phillips had just 1 TFL in 8 games, and what was concerning to me at the time was he wasn't consistently getting defensive snaps, as he had 3 games with playing 60% or more snaps in the first half of the season, and the last thing I wanted to think was, is this another Isaiah Simmons with how the Cardinals played him in his rookie season, or should I say lack of? And after the second loss to Buffalo, in which Miami dropped to 1-7, everything clicked for not only Phillips, but for the team. And what impressed me was how strong of a second half he had, because I fully expect that to carry over into 2022. There's always a learning curve for NFL players, and maybe for Phillips it was as short of as half of a season. Now, I am 100% getting ahead of myself when I say this, but I loved him in the draft process, and it's not out of the realm of possibilities for him to have 13, 14, or 15 sacks next year if he can be consistent. Now, I was going to say lead the league in sacks, but we'll wait on that one before we see a whole season's worth of productions. And again, it's not me definitively saying he will do this or that. It wouldn't surprise me because of how dominant he has been over the back half of the 2021 season. And Jaelan's second half really went under the radar because of how good Micah Parsons is and will continue to be for that matter, and of course the attention the Dolphins team, not just Jaelan, was receiving for his individual performance. Now, obviously that will eventually change, and with an NFL coaching staffs and how they plan against Miami already has. Dolphins fans, please also note Javon Holland could be in today's video, and really even Jalen Waddle for that matter too. It's just Jalen will always kind of be a second fiddle to this draft class in terms of his position because of how dominant Jamar Chase is. I loved Miami's first 2 defensive picks of Phillips and Holland last April, and especially Javon because he was one of my favorite players in the entire draft, and a year later both of these guys have paid off for Miami. I truly cannot wait to see how this guy's careers pan out, as both of them, as we said, love them. Now, there are several other players that could have been mentioned in today's video. That doesn't mean they suck or they didn't pay off for their franchise, because that really wouldn't be the case. Players like Jamar Chase, Rashawn Slater, Mac Jones, both Devontae and the aforementioned Waddle, and really many more have as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, because that's all I have. And if you're still here watching, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would mean the world. Put a lot of hard work into these videos, and your like and subscription would mean the world. And until next time, I love you guys. Please be safe and have a great day.